set me up for success the whole time I was there, which was important. And you normally don't see that. At least it was definitely a different feeling from OF1, where the 3 was definitely more directive, and Major Henderson and Major Truff were definitely much more team building. And there were times they definitely got in my rear a couple times, and there's no doubt about that. But they were definitely there to ensure that my transition into a company commander was there, and they gave me the full support that I needed as a company commander. It wasn't this, well, he's a lieutenant, wearing captain's bars. No, they treated it as, hey, he's a company commander, and we're going to give him all the support he needs as a company commander. Until he steps on his face and gets someone killed, he's our company commander. So.
Now transitioning to the topic of some covert OP operations that were done later in the deployment. And the two that I want to ask you about are the so-called covert OP that Lima 3 did at the mansion in June. And then the second one is one that you brought up, which is where Link in Sudan went out. It's basically a small 2-man OP just 500 meters outside the wire at around checkpoint 74.
Right.
And we can go in either order. But just can you describe that TTP from your perspective?
When this is how it came up, towards June 30th transition of authority, the question of how much presence do you put in the city, and are we going to pull back? Concerns you pull back out of the city, now you've let it fester. You could potentially let it fester, become an insurgent battleground. We didn't want to do that, so talking to platoon commanders, my vision collectively with all the other input of all platoon commanders and platoon sergeants was pushing towards a heavy OP operation, both using a combination of covert and overt OPs. While we were planning that, we started to take a considerable amount of indirect fire. Normally we would get it once a day, but for a good 2-week period, we were getting it 2 or 3 times a day. Even with the patrols, and we were going back down to an organic company with just recon and a cat element along with snipers. Eventually, Kilo went back to Alcan. Now, we didn't have counter battery radar yet, but there was always a feeling that these attacks are probably coming outside the city, because really that's the best vantage point that you can have line of sight of the camp. So we gave 3rd Platoon a mission to go out there and establish an OP late at night, early in the morning where no one can see you, and you're going to be out there for 2 days to, do counter mortar OP. And sure enough, that morning they heard shots out, and it was amazing. I mean, it was like fighting insurgency, especially in a complex environment like Iraq now. You're going to take contact constantly, and every now and then, you're just going to get that one golden egg that you just got to capitalize on, and that was it. Lieutenant Watson heard it, called back to the CP. It was about 10:30 in the morning, and said, "Hey, you guys are taking indirect right now." Gunny Bay comes in and tells me, "Hey, we're going to take indirect fire." I'm like, "Gunny, what are you talking about?" Sure enough, took indirect fire. Immediately, Lieutenant Watson fired into, I guess there's a couple of bushes out there north of the city. There's a mansion out here. I'm trying to remember on this map where it was. But it was somewhere out here in this direction. Or maybe it was either out here or somewhere out in here. But there's a mansion there somewhere. I can't remember on the map. Had been out here. Thing about these maps is it may look pretty like it's far away, but it's really not that. It's really not a long walk at all. But seeing that, they fired into the tree area. They fired into the tree area and saw a truck, go away. They got 2 of the guys, but the rest of the guys got away. And lo and behold, they found some PVC pipe or some metal pipe. They found some rockets, and they found some mortars. This led us to believe that, okay, there's just more than one mortar team now. And there was a good eyesight as far a good intel piece of or dump of what we're dealing with. That they were using makeshift mortar tubes. There was no pre-established mortar team where it was just this one mortar team going around harassing us, and if we got them, then there wasn't going to be any mortars. No, they were taking PVC pipe or taking metal pipe and making makeshift mortar tubes and putting them and placing them all throughout the city. And there's more than just a group of guys. It's just like having an MPT going around who's a foreign fighter, and he trains multiple people throughout the city to say, this is how you make a makeshift mortar tube. Well, his initial reaction was he wanted to burn, Lieutenant Watson at that point wanted to burn the field, but not a good idea because one, my concern there was, A, you're gonna make the locals very unhappy burning up all their crops, and two, if there's any other small caches and you got platoon there, all that heat or whatnot will set it off. So we just had them sweep through, send some engineers out there with metal detectors to sweep through the area to the best of our ability. And with that, Lieutenant Watson was able to get the majority of it. But that was a very good OP for him because he was able to. It gave us that momentum that we needed to find these mortar teams that are going around the city. And with that, it showed that covert OPs can work. Now, it's a little bit hard in the city, but how do you fix that? Well, Recon does another covert OP where we do another overt OP on the crack house south of the city. We make the enemy buy into our overt OP while Recon's covert. They leave, Recon stays there, another covert OP just like their platoon, and we get an ID crew. 2 golden eggs, within a 3-week span.
And what was the time frame of that joint covert OP?
That was about 2300 at night. That was about a week after Lieutenant Watson's.
And that was in June?
That was in June.
And so it was conducted by Recon or Broadsword?
Broadsword 70. Billy Dean and Captain Moore.
And Broadsword and
that also was, I believe it was, you know what? That could have been Limit 3 as well. I have to look back in the patrol report, but matter of fact, it was Limit 3. So the beauty of it was bait and switch, more or less. And with that was going to be our meat and potatoes, was using a combination of overt and covert OPs. No sense in sending Marines to the ground just to patrol, because patrolling is just a capability. But you have to you want to have a good solid mission, a task and purpose. And with the Transition Authority, where we're not roaming the streets rapidly and saturating them, what we want to, well, saturation through observation. And use a combination of it. Overt and covert will allow us to force the enemy to show his hand. And then when raids came up, we would establish an element to do some successful raids. But the beauty of it, of using the covert and overt OPs, was that the missions were more than just counter mortar and counter IED. But if we knew that there was an area that was heating up after doing operations, maybe dismount operations, maybe like the east side or whatnot, then guess what? We can put a unit there, covert, and just put eyes on, and eventually establish a raid package or establish a quick sweep package that we want to hit in that objective area. I would say that in this whole 7-month time frame, OP operations allowed us to be extremely successful in this small wars fight. It was an OP that saw. It was an OP that saw that triggered the Battle of Sable on the 17th. It was OPs that were hit on the 14th over checkpoint 69 in the crack house, if you want to really put it that way. On the 8th, Lima 2 Lima 1 was in an OP or a patrol base, and they were hit. But either way, it was always just these small elements that were out there that managed to draw the enemy to show his hand and allowed us effectively to fight him. Not these big, huge, massive, footprints like a platoon-sized patrol, just walking through an area. And so after that, we went back to the COC and started doing more and more planning with this whole OP operation. And that's when Sergeant Sedan came up with, hey, he said, the covert and overt OPs are making us some progress, but maybe we need to shrink down to something a little bit smaller to see if we can get the enemy really show his hand. Because even then, with covert and overt OPs, there's always we still had a high percentage rate of that we were going to get passively compromised, which means that someone knows that we're there, and either nothing happens or then we become actively compromised, which is we start to take shots. And all of our